people think they have to know how. I call it the tyranny of how. Like, you get all excited, I'm gonna do this, and then your brain goes, I've never done it before, oh my God, what did I say? I don't know how to do this. And they tend to focus on how to do it. And when you start with how, you're screwed. Like, Martin Luther King had no idea how when he did his I Have a Dream speech. In fact, his wife was the one that pushed him because he was uncertain, right? If you know the real history, it's pretty interesting. But the bottom line is he gets up there and he gives his vision of how it can be done. He talked about what needs to happen and why. If you can figure out what you want and why you want it, and you get strong enough reasons that'll drive you late at night, it'll get you up early in the morning, and the reasons are different. Some people do it for nitty-gritty reasons. Jim Rohn used to say, because some guy told him he borrowed money from this finance company, I forget the name of HFC Finance, whatever the hell it was, and he hadn't been back since he borrowed the money, So they're calling him. In those days, they could harass you in ways they can't today, right? They'd call him, show up, and embarrass him in front of his neighbors. And so Jim Rohn, his first real chunk of money, he told me he made because it's like he set this goal. It was his nitty-gritty reason. His reason to get rich was so he could go down and pay this thing off. And he said he went to the bank and got it all in cash and in small bills, and he bolted into this little HFC, finance place, and the guy who borrowed the money was the fourth best back. And he said, I walked up there, I opened up this brief, and I dumped all the money all over his desk in small bills. And I said, count it, it's all there, I will never be back. He said he was startled because I hadn't been there since I borrowed the money, right? But he did it for nitty-gritty. Some people do it for their kid. Some people will do it, we'll almost all do it for something more than ourselves. Some people do it because they like winning. Right? I know that about you, right? It's like, I like winning. I like being the best at what I do. So I'm not going to settle for less than that. Why would I? Right? So you got to find your reasons. But if you know what you want and you get a big enough why, now you'll figure out how to do it. But if you start with how, the small brain, the fear brain, goes, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do 90% of the time either. I know what and why, and then I try something. It doesn't work. I try something else, and I'll do something else. Now I speed it up by learning from the best. So that's why, Money Master the Game is a perfect example. My companies, at the time were $100 million companies. I had one $500 million company. Now we're doing $7 billion. I took what I learned from these guys. I applied it not only to my investing, I applied it to my own businesses. Why do I reinvent the wheel when I just learned from the best on earth? I mean, somebody's that good can tell you that little 2 millimeter thing that changes everything. So my life is really about learn from the best, but I don't start with the how. I start with the what and the why. And I think that's the mistake most people make.
Tony Robbins. Okay, guys, look. 4 W's. 4 of the most important questions you can ask yourself. It's the 4 W's. Who am I? Or at least who do I want to become? What do I want? Why do I want it? And when? So let's go with the why, because he said start with your why. I want to go a little bit deeper than your why. Because if you know your why, you can figure out any how. You've heard that before. But what's the why behind the why? And then what's the why behind that why? Because if you can figure that out, you would never quit. Because you have a reason deep down inside of you that would not allow you to quit, because you're connected to why you must make this happen. And then why that why must happen. That's going to be your deep, deep, deep inspiration and motivation and determination. So figuring out your why, you figure out the how once you know your why. So that's it. Let's go.
just all energy there. Okay, Zane.
It's Tony Robbins, man. It's Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I think the why really boils down to getting clarity around what it is that you're going after. A lot of times we feel like we need to have the how, but the how is actually a series of imperfect actions taken toward that why.
That's good. Say it again. That was good. The imperfect. Say that. That's good.
But the how is a series of imperfect actions that take you toward the why.
Y'all need to write that down. That's good. That's good stuff.
Wait, what did he just say?
I'm supposed to say y'all need to write. Y'all need to write it down. So I had to repeat it because it was so good. Write that down. Rewind us, because that'll help for the analytics. Rewind us and then write down what he just said. All right, continue on, Drew. My bad. It was good. Though. What?
At the end of the day, a lot of times the thing that you think is going to move you in the direction of getting closer towards your dreams will ultimately yield not the answer that you thought it was. And by getting that feedback and taking that imperfect action to give you the feedback to take a different action and pivot in a slightly different direction to ultimately get to your why, is ultimately going to be how you get there. Obviously, if you have other people who have done the thing that you've done and model them, it can speed up the process of getting closer to your why. But a lot of times, the path to the end goal, the success that you desire, is just a matter of failing forward and creating multiple outcomes along the way.
Yeah.
Looked like Zane wanted to get back in there.
No, it's good. It's good.
You
I
just-
like look WHY. Get 3 people and it's 3 letters. WHY. I just thought that was cool.
Okay, go for it.
All right, so your why is one of the big reasons why I wrote Built to Serve. It was the number one question people get asked me. It's like, how do I find my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Why? Well, figuring out your why is not as difficult as everybody makes it out to seem. It's your why is your purpose, and your purpose comes from your pain. So wherever you felt the most pain in life, emotional pain as a human, when did you feel the most worthless? Your why is to help other people not struggle and suffer as much as you did. And
What was the original title of the book? Was some Y in there? Your who, your
Start
why, your
with
how.
why.
The original. See, Y was in there. The original title of the book.
the original title of the book was Who I How, because that's the process I guide people through. But we changed it to Built to Serve because people couldn't remember the order of Who I How, so Built to Serve was a more memorable title. But it still boils down to you want to serve, you want to feel like the work you do every day matters, and the people who you'll love to serve the most are the people who you see yourself in. A younger you. It doesn't have to be younger age, but younger on the path. You struggled with something, and then you see somebody struggling with the exact same thing that you struggled with, and you want to help them. And that is in all of us. So we all want to wake up and feel like we're going to do something that matters today. If you are stuck on the how to get something done, then it's not that you don't have a why, it's just that the why is not important enough in that moment to you. If we're sitting here making videos, it's easy enough to get caught up on the how. We know we've trained ourselves enough, and things like this to not get stuck on it. But we could say, well, we don't have the gear and the microphone and the lighting, and how are we gonna fit 3 people in here, and we're in a hotel room, and it's not sophisticated, and like all of this stuff that could easily block action. And we just decided we're gonna go do it. But if I ever need an extra boost, then I remind myself of why I'm doing it. And so, tomorrow or Tuesday, I'm gonna be,
You're the reason why.
you're the reason why. Yeah, it's not just talking to the camera, but talking to humans on the other side of this. And, we're a part of your daily routine and appreciate that. And so if I'm gonna go and speak on stage or say yes to some big opportunity, we're here at an event in Vegas and I'm gonna be speaking at, and it's me and Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy and Patrick McDavid and some awesome entrepreneurs. If I get nervous to go on stage, then I remember back to the why. Why am I doing this? Well, because I've got a message that those guys don't have, and if I can touch a few people here in this room and online, then it's worth it. And if I can connect back to that why, then it gives me the courage to then go do the thing, and suddenly the how doesn't become the problem anymore. So if you saw us, if we were filming like the setup for this, I'm trying to figure out if we have a tripod. Drew's tripod didn't work properly, didn't have the right adjustment. Zan is pulling apart lampshades and turning things upside down and taking things apart to try to make something work. We've got a table, we take out the table, we're throwing chairs together. We're making whatever, like we're not stuck on the how because we're getting into action mode. And if that's where you feel slow right now, like how, the how needs to be figured out.
And it will be.
And it will be when you get into a state of resourcefulness.
Yes.
And you get that state of resourcefulness by remembering how important that why is for you, that this has to get done.
I'm gonna take a chance here. Okay, so check this out. I remember this years and years and years ago because I go to a lot of seminars, a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings. And I remember I was at this training many, many years ago, maybe over 10 years ago. And to understand the significance and the importance and the power of why, the trainer had us do this. He had a stage, right? So I'm gonna see if I can paint this properly for you guys. Imagine a stage, and on one end there's stairs, on the other end there's stairs. Now the trainer is on the stage, okay? And the other side of the stage is your why. It's like you gotta get that goal. On this side of the stage, you have to cross the stage to get to your goal. Now there's a long line, and the instructions are you cannot do the same thing the person did before you. So when we say how, the creativity is already in us. So say the first person walks across the stage. Great, they got their why, they got there. The next person cannot just walk, they have to skip. The next person has to jump. The next person will roll. Every single person came up with a creative way of how to get across the stage because they had a big enough why. So the whole lesson was if you have a big enough or a strong enough why, you will figure out the how. And every single, there was hundreds of people. And some people danced, some people did backflips because you could not do what somebody else just did. And it was showed us how creative we are. And you become so creative, you will figure out the how. As Marie Folio said, everything is figure outable. You will figure it out. The most important thing is, like what Juliet and Evan just says, know your why.
How would you get across the stage then?
Man, I would jump. I would jump like this. No, I'm joking. Okay, that's crazy.
I thought you were gonna fall out of the chair.
I was crazy. Hey.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Here's what I've created for my life and anyone I know succeeded. I'm a 17-year-old kid from Azusa, California, with no real education other than self-education, with no background, with parents that did their best, all of them, with no money, but I did one thing. I love people, and I had an enormous demand I made upon myself, and I sculpted my mind and my emotions to get me to do whatever it would take to achieve and to contribute. But to do that, I did it by using my body and changing my focus. I did it by putting myself in a peak physiology and using what I call incantations. Can you train yourself to believe something, yes or no? Absolutely. How many of you ever made the fatal mistake of going to Disneyland or Disney World, and while you're there made the fatal mistake of going to a ride called It's a Small World After All? What happens for about a week after you're out of that damn place? You're still singing this thing in your head in 24 languages, right? Well, let me tell you something. How many of you have things when you want to go achieve them and this part of your voice goes, oh, it's not going to happen, or forget it? How many got a voice that sometimes interrupts that good pattern? Say I. And what you want to do is train a new one. So starting when I was 17, I started doing incantations, not affirmations. Affirmation, you go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. What's the problem? You haven't changed your what? Your what? Physiology. If you don't change your physiology, you won't get anything. So in incantations, not only you speak it, but you embody what you're saying with all the intensity you can. And you do it with enough repetitions that it sticks in your head. Like It's a Small World, now the conversation in your head is always the same and it gives you what you want. So you use your body and your voice. So 17 years ago, I started doing things. I was working for Jim Rohn, this speaker, and I was 17 years old. I had long hair, minestrone soup, acne on my face. And I was trying to call on Bear Stearns type of people and convince them why they should go to this man's seminar and be more successful. I was driving a 1968 Volkswagen that I had earned at $40 a week as a janitor. The only way I did it was park far from the building and then go in, and I love people and I believe, but I put myself in state and I was able to influence people that were far more successful than I was at the time. I will do something that I still do backstage and have done for 23 years. Because I don't hope I'm going to be in a good state, I demand it. So I do an incantation using my whole body. I'd say, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible alive today to better their lives by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their lives now. And I would do that literally driving in my Volkswagen to a meeting in LA on the freeway for 40 minutes. People are looking at me, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. They're going, I know he's a serial killer, I know he is. But by the time I entered that room, when two people meet, if there's rapport, the person who's most certain will always influence the other person. And I was totally certain, and they were trying to get revved up to certainty. Do you agree with this, yes or no? I do another one because I was poor. I changed my mindset. I kept doing things, but I never got beyond it. I'd say God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence, for I'm one with God and God is everything. And I would imagine the abundance of my life, and I would feel so grateful. And a year later, I went from making $38,000 a year to making $1 million a year in 1 year. Leverage is critical. You know how I get so much done? Because I don't just get it done. I know the outcome, I know the purpose, and I look for leverage. Leverage is different than delegation. What's the problem with delegation? Delegation is you have all that needs to be done, so you give it to someone else, and you tell them what needs to be done, and when they don't do it, you're pissed off. Leverage says, I can move the biggest boulder in the world with a little bit of effort if I get something I can do it with, but I'm still part of it. So leverage is, if I'm going to leverage something here with Tom, I'm going to make sure Tom understands the what? The outcome. I want to make sure Tom understands the purpose, the why, and the action. But I might say to Tom, if you can get this done without this action or better action, go for it, baby. And I want to talk to you on this date, and we got a promise, and we're going to check in before it's needed. So there's no surprises. And if you're having problems, Tom, come back to me because we're partners on this. That I call leverage. And you know what I do when I have no time? There is time. I just got to leverage it. Now I'm saying, you say, I have no one to leverage it to. You know, Shane over here, right? I got all the stuff he wants to do, he can't leverage it. But Shane's answer was, hire somebody, then he thinks about what it's going to take and goes, $125,000, I can't do that now. He's getting caught up in one way to get the outcome. Leverage. He goes through his list and goes, what if I got someone to do 20% of this stuff? I could spend 20 grand to get that much freedom. I could pay for it times 10. And if I'm really productive, my productivity should enhance the world, not only my clients and customers, but it should provide jobs for other people. And if there's anything you hate to do, it's because you're either ineffective at it or you don't think it's very important, but it is urgent. So you need to hire somebody for those things. And ideally, somebody who loves that job. You're never going to grow when your time is eaten up for activities that aren't that important. Activity without high levels of purpose is the drain of your fortune. Do it now. If you can't get it all now, do a part of it now. Leverage is power. Leverage is ultimate power. Whenever people fail to achieve their goals 99.9% of the time, and you ask them why, they'll tell you it's because of a lack of resources. That's what all these things are. I didn't have the support, right? I didn't have the money. We didn't have the time. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. There's a resource that people believe is missing. And that resource belief structure then keeps people from ever being able to really lead. Because what leaders do is they find a way to maximize whatever resources they have, as little as they may be, and they don't believe in limited resources. I'll give you an example. Let's take a business example to start with. In 1974, a guy named Sam Walton had built his little company up. He came up with an idea. He started with $20,000 in, I think, 1962, if I remember right. But by 1974, within 12 years, he had 78 stores. And you know how he did it? In the middle of the night, he'd drive across the border and he'd go and study other people's stores. He'd buy everything the cheapest he could in the middle of the night. He'd go to other people's stores. Whatever was working, he figured out. Success leaves clues. He came back and did it in his store. Whatever was working in any store, in any competitor, anywhere he could do it, he did it. So he figured out how to maximize the little resources he had, his 20,000, built 78 stores, and if you read any of the people following him, the company had gone public in that year, they were all saying, this is it. He's maximized his resources. I mean, he only has so much money. There's only so many cities that are going to appeal to this discounting mentality, right? This is it. This is all he can do. And the word on Wall Street was sell. Now, what's interesting is at that time, you look at Sears and Kmart, and they were gargantuan companies, weren't they? 20, 30, 40, 50 times, 100 times his size or more, probably. And at that time, they were the leaders, and they knew what's going to happen. But did things change, yes or no? Did he suddenly get mass amounts of capital? No. Here's what they didn't understand. Sam Walton now, or the Walton Organization, Walmart, is the most successful retailing operation on earth. And when you talk about Bill Gates being the richest man in the world, that's only true because Sam's fortune is divided up amongst a bunch of different family members. You put them together, they dwarf Bill Gates. Sam Walton did this. How did he do it? What people underestimated is that this guy could go to 4,400 stores, do 250 billion. Where's Kmart today? And they've been shrinking. All of them have been shrinking. And he's the dominant force on earth. Here's the thing he understood. Resources are interesting, but the ultimate resources are the feelings of emotion that make you resourceful. Think of it this way. Resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. What do I mean? What are the emotions that make all this possible? What's the fuel that takes an idea from being in your head where you intellectually know what to do? How many have had an idea, for example, was a great idea, you're excited about it, and then you didn't do anything. One day, there you saw it on the shelf, you saw it somewhere else, someone stole your idea. How many have had this happen? Say I. The only difference between you and that person was not that they had more resources, they were more resourceful. Success and failure are not giant events. They don't just show up. You don't just suddenly become successful or suddenly have this cataclysmic event that makes you fail. It may look that way, but failure comes from all the little things. It's failure to make the call. It's failure to check the books. It's failure to say, I'm sorry. It's failure to push yourself to do things physically that you don't want to do. And all those little failures day after day come together until one day some cataclysmic event happens and you blame that. That event happened because you missed all the little stuff. Do you agree with me? And success, by the way, is not some overnight event. It's all these little things. Success is having a vision. Success is making it compelling. Success is really seeing it and feeling it every day with strong enough reasons. Success is feeling the sense that I'm here to grow and I'm here to give something to the world more than just myself. All the little stuff. That's where success comes from. In business, it comes from delivering more than anybody could imagine. All those little things add up. People go, wow, that's who I want to do business with. It's true in any area of your life. Everyone has different goals and dreams and desires, but as I traveled around the world to 100 countries, I started going, holy shit, and seeing the same problems. What's underneath it? I began to see that there are these same 6 human needs that we all have, the same needs. We all have a need for certainty, that we can avoid pain and we can have some pleasure, some comfort. We all need uncertainty. We need variety or we feel dead inside. If you're totally certain, you're bored. If you have total variety, you're like freak out. And it's not a balance. It's learning which of these you need more as a person. Everyone's developed a different set of values in that area. The need for significance, to feel unique, special, important. The need to feel loved, the need to grow, and the need to contribute. Some people value certainty at the top of their list. That's their center of their target. I don't want to do anything unless I know it's going to work. I don't want to do anything unless it's the same. If you change anything, they freak out. If certainty is the number one thing on your list, everyone has the same needs, but if it's number one, I know how your life's going to be. I can predict the direction of your life and therefore the destination to some extent. If you're driven by love first, you want certainty too, but love is higher, you're going to behave very differently than if you're driven by significance. I have to be the one. Your experience in business was trying to be significant by making enough money and being successful enough that you would feel what you really want, which is that feeling of love, what you call, what would you call it?
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie, thank you, camaraderie. So that feeling of, it's really love, it's the friendship, it's camaraderie, it's that component, that's what really drives you. Sure. And so you figure out how to organize your life where that's the driving force, and now look what you've done. You've flourished and everyone around you is flourishing. So I look to see which of those needs are the top 2 on your list because they control your life.
Yep.
The 2 that most people have, 90% of the planet, if you said, of all these needs, which one do you really focus on most day to day? Everybody wants love, but what do you focus on? Most people focus on being significant. We live in a Facebook world where people fake their life, put new filters, make it look different than it really is, tell stories that, are totally full of it to make themselves look good. Because we live in this kind of false world where significance is more important than love.
Right.
And it separates us. And the other one that we see most often is certainty. People want to be certain before they can do something. You couldn't have started a business like you had if you were absolutely certain before you started. You can never build a business with that. You can never build a great relationship, because if it's based on certainty, then everybody's got to stay the same and never change, which means you're never going to grow, which means you're going to be miserable.
Right.
So my metrics are, I want to find out what's driving you. And I want to see, is it healthy or unhealthy? You can have two people be driven by significance, though, and do it with a different set of rules. That's the second piece I measure. The beliefs or rules of how to fulfill that target. So Osama bin Laden, certainty-driven, love-driven, contribution-driven, significance-driven, not hard to figure out. On a 0 to 10, he was a 10 for significance. He was the, whatever, I'm making the number up, I think he was like the 27th child of his father, 22nd child. Most people don't know that. Totally insignificant, not skilled, took his dad's money, went over to Afghanistan, and suddenly, because he had money, he became significant. And he wasn't even part of that movement at that stage. It shaped him. So what does he do? He's gonna figure out, his model of the world is, I'm significant if I destroy you, right? On that same day of 9/11, there were men and women in the fire department, police department, that were also driven by significance and contribution. And they went into that building knowing they're likely gonna die to save a stranger. Both people driven to have a significant life. One is by taking life, one is by giving their own life. So once you understand the metrics, using your language, of what's driving you, and then the rules or beliefs of what does it take for you to feel loved, it's different for everybody. What does it take for you to feel certain? Some people need $1 billion, some people just need to trust God. In the early stages of myself as an entrepreneur, I started all these companies from scratch. And then I met a gentleman, the gentleman started MTV, and we had this really cool conversation. He said, Tony, it took me, a decade and a half to really build up MTV. And he said, and then I built another company, and he said, Tony, what I realized? It takes like 7 years, that was his number in his head, on average, to go from scratch to build something that's really stable and strong and so forth. And he goes, I realized there's only so many 7-year cycles in my body. And he said, but if I went to a company that already has been around for 7, 10, 20 years, and I bring my ability, my vision, my ability to grow that business, my ability to inspire the people, my ability to produce resourcefulness, then I get a multiplied effect. And he goes, Tony, you're the best in the world at what you do, but damn, you work your tail off. And so he asked me if I'd come speak. One of the companies he took over was Century 21 Real Estate. Yep. And he said, why haven't you ever spoken for us? I said, because your company asked me over and over, but they're cheap. They want to pay me $100,000 and my fee's $250,000. He goes, we'll pay the $250,000. I said, no, for you, I'll do it for free. Because he's a friend, and I'm learning from him. So I came and did the speech, and afterwards he sat me back down, and he goes, Tony, there are 10,000 people here. He says, I know like all my financial guys, they all look to you, but you're like a rock star from middle America. These people in gold jackets selling real estate. He goes, do you know how much our business increased in those 4 months? And I don't remember the exact number. It was like 22 or 23% or something. He goes, do you know how much money you made me? And you got nothing. He said, let me give you some advice. Go find people that have some form of momentum that you can turn it around and get a piece of that. And that's how I changed. So what I looked for were businesses that I felt tremendous emotional connection to, because I felt they'd touch people's lives in some way. And I looked for partners that were geniuses, but where I could bring my own genius to it, where 1 + 1 = 5, or at least 3, not 2. And by doing that, I got pieces of these different companies, and then it just grew and grew and grew and grew. So I'm in virtual reality. I have a company called NextVR. My partners are geniuses, and we just locked down the exclusive for the NBA. So instead of Monday Night Football, we have Tuesday Night NBA, and you literally, it's like you're on the court, you can look and feels like you can reach out and touch LeBron. It's mind-boggling, and there's no cords or computer. It's all done off your phone with an app. It's mind-boggling.
Wow.
We also have the exclusive for Live Nation for all concerts. So you can be right there next to Jay-Z or Beyonce, like you feel like you can touch them, right? I have a company that's #1 guy in stem cells in the world. I have a company that does genetics, that's just genius. I've got companies that are in the education space. I bought Adweek with a group of partners. I have my financial companies. So the diversity I have is mind-boggling, but that's also the secret to investing. If you got all your eggs in one basket and there's a problem, you need to make sure you run your business really successful, give it your all, not start 20 of them. But once that business really is strong and your investments are strong, then you can build a second one. Most people, they build a business and then it's not going as well as they want, so I start another business because it feels more exciting. And it's like, you have one child you're not taking care of, so let's have a second child and a third child, and it just doesn't work. But the diversity of it also makes me excited. So I manage 12 of them actively. The others, I have such great partners. Like, I own the Major League Soccer new franchise in LA. I'm a partner in that. It's called the LA Football Club. But my partner is Peter Guber, who owns the LA Dodgers and owns the Golden State Warriors, and about as smart a human as you could ever have in the sports field. And then I bought in the esports field. It's mind-boggling. We fill whole stadiums now with people watching people play video games. So I bought Team Liquid, which with my partners, with Peter and everyone else, and so, the opportunities are just amazing because I'm partnering with people who have skills that are the best in the world, and I'm bringing mine. And when you combine them, you get a greater impact.
Connection, right? And versus significance. I want to be the best, so I got to be different, but I want to be in community with you. I want to be close to you.
I want love and I want connection. But see, what most people like, you see this in great actors or great entertainers, they'll come to me and in the beginning, they work so hard to be significant, to be unique, to be special, to be important. What they really wanted was love. But now people stop on the street and they'll say to me, they don't even know who I am. They just want my time. They just want this. They want a picture. They don't respect my family. They don't respect it. You'll hear them so upset. What they wanted was the love. But see, we can have both. But the more significant I am, the more unique I am, the more separate I am from you. The more connected I am, then some people go, yeah, but where am I? Where am I special? So finding that balance between the two is what makes people feel alive. And we can meet all these needs in positive ways or negative ways. You can get significance by tearing other people down. Oh, they're lucky, they don't care, they took advantage of somebody. You don't know anything about them. You see people dealt with famous people all the time. Why are they tearing them down? Because if I don't feel good about myself, if I can make you smaller, I look like I'm moving up. But you're not, and it doesn't work. But if you do things where you significantly love someone, if you care for someone, you're the most significant person in life. If you try to prove you're significant, then you have kind of the Trump effect. Even people that like him will say, sometimes he can push people aside because he's telling everybody how special he is. I'm not making a political statement. I'm saying that gets in the way of relationship. If we're gonna connect, we gotta not make ourselves significant. We gotta find out what's significant in the other person and honor it. There's so many things, people's relationships are complex, right? Because you're dealing with another species. Even if you're gay, in order to have a relationship, you need opposite energies, male and female energies, even if it's in the same gender. And so relationships are a huge source of challenge for people because it's where you get the greatest joy and it's where you get the greatest pain. I think in business, most people get into business, and we all know the stats. 50% of businesses are gone the first year, 96% are gone in 10 years. 4 out of 100 make it. That doesn't mean they're profitable. So there's different issues that you deal with there. People's bodies, because of the way we have commercialized food, makes almost everybody, 70% of Americans are overweight. It's the fast country in the history of the world, and the rest of the world's mirroring us. So I deal with so many different issues. It really depends on the person. People come to me usually at extremes. They're either the best in the world at what they do and they're doing well and they're the best because they're always looking for that little thing I can do that makes me better and takes me to a different destiny. Or it's somebody facing a challenge. They're facing a financial challenge, a business challenge, an emotional challenge, a relationship challenge with their kids, or they have a birthday with a 0 on it, so they're reevaluating their life. So I get people who have found a hunger. They're hungry because it's not how they want it, or they're hungry because that's their nature. People are not hungry, I don't really deal with because they pretty much accept where things are. And so what I wish for them, what I pray for them is they find something to inspire them more than themselves, or the wagon wheel comes down their rut. They get enough pain that they start searching. And I don't care how smart you are, how strong you are, how rich you are, how famous you are. Life is gonna humble you. Life's gonna take you to your knees. The real question is, what are you gonna do when that happens? And so for me, it's really like what this challenge is about. It's like a comeback challenge. The greatest story again. What is the greatest story of mankind? What's the story we all love in books and movies? It's a comeback. It's somebody gets taken to their knees, unfairly, unjustly, whatever, or their own ego takes them there. And then instead of giving up, they get up, they get knocked down, they get up, and then eventually they don't only get up and they don't get to where they were, get them better than they were. So when you have the meaning that this is the beginning of the relationship and this person's the most incredible thing and you will do what for them? What will you do? Anything. What if you were that way with your client? What if you're that way with your internal customers, called your partners? You go, well, if you'd have real sexual problems with HR, that would be a real challenge. But if your commitment was the same, when you're in that place, you do anything in the beginning of a relationship. In the beginning of a relationship, if your partner said, would you take out the trash? What do you say? Take out the trash. Happily. But after about 7 days or 7 weeks or 7 months or 7 years, or 70 years. One day, someone said, "Would you take out the trash?" You go, "What do I look like, your janitor?" You go, "What happened to our passion?" I'll give you a clue. If you want a relationship to last, if you think it's coming to the end, do what you did in the beginning and there won't be an end. Because when you think it's the beginning, you behave differently than the end. The meaning we associate to things controls our entire lives. It's not that your mother or father died that's giving you suffering. Certainly that's painful. It's the meaning you think it shouldn't have happened. And when we take control of the meaning, it's the only thing we can control our lives. We can't control events. When 9/11 happened, and I'll finish with this, I was in Hawaii. I was with 2,000 people from 45 countries. We were translating 4 languages simultaneously for a program that I was conducting for a week. The night before was called Emotional Mastery. I got up, had no plan for this, and I said, we had a list of fireworks. I do crazy, fun stuff. And then at the end I stopped, and I had this plan I was gonna say, but I never do what I'm gonna say. And all of a sudden I said, when do people really start to live? When they face death. And then I went through this whole thing about if you were gonna get off this island, if 9 days from now you were gonna die, who would you call, what would you say, what would you do? One woman, well, that night is when 9/11 happened. One woman had come to the seminar, and when she came there, her previous boyfriend had been kidnapped and murdered. Her friend, or her new boyfriend, wanted to marry her, and she said no. He said, if you leave and go to that Hawaii thing, it's over with us. She said, it's over. When I finished that night, she called him and left a message, true story, at the top of the World Trade Center where he worked, saying, honey, I love you. I just want you to know, I want to marry you. It was stupid of me. She was asleep, because it was 3 a.m. for us, when he called her back from the top and said, honey, I can't tell you what this means. He said, I don't know how to tell you this, but you give me the greatest gift, because I'm going to die. And she played the recording for us in the room. She was on Larry King later. And he said, you're probably wondering how on earth this could happen to you twice. And he said, all I can say to you is, this must be God's message to you, honey. From now on, every day, give your all, love your all. Don't let anything ever stop you. I was in my early 20s, and I developed this incredible arsenal of tools, a toolbox, a tool chest, if you will, of the very best tools to create change rapidly. Things that look like magic to people. Where I could take somebody and I would go on a radio show or a TV show and I would challenge traditional psychologists and psychiatrists and I'd say, give me your worst patient. I don't care if they have uncontrollable phobias. Have them come see me. I'll handle it in 1 hour. And I developed this idea that I was the 1 hour, the one-stop coach, the person that could help people make any change. And I built my career by actually doing that. I got on television and radio and I took people with lifetime phobias and turned them around. And these are all just techniques and strategies that I didn't develop. I just kept looking for the best and I kept synthesizing it and bringing it forward. So when I started out, here I was, this guy helping people lose 30, 60, 90, in some cases 200 pounds. Or taking a guy that was barely surviving financially and within a couple of years of this counseling or coaching, as I started to call it, really got him to turn his business around and literally got him financially independent. Relationships that were falling apart. And I learned the distinctions to help couples change. And so when you start getting those types of results that are that measurable, people started giving me attention and the media started to come to me. And then what they wanted to know was this: what are you? You know, and I thought, are you a guru? I said, no, I'm not that. You're Mr. Motivator. Like, no, I'm certainly believe in people having an inspired life. I mean, think about it. Inspiration is pretty important. If you're not inspired, what is inspired? It means in spirit. It means there's an energy in your life. If you're not inspired about your life, what do you have? Nothing. But I'm really more about strategy. And they kept pushing me. Guru, motivator, what are you? You know, and I said, well, you know what I really am? I'm a coach. And I came up with that metaphor. I mean, there's always been consultants in business. I wasn't talking about businesses. It was individuals. And I said, I'm not a therapist. You know, I said, and I don't have a degree. People pay me because I produce measurable results. They pay me nothing unless I do it. That's how I set up my career. That's how I built my brand. And I said, you know, for me, coaches are people that are not better than you are. A coach just has a different perspective. I mean, even back in those days, the best athletes in the days, the Gretzkys, the Michael Jordans, et cetera, they all had a coach. Still to this day, the best have coaches because the coach can see what you can't see because you're in the forest. They're outside of it. And I know as an athlete, I was better than some of my coaches, but they made me better. So I said, that's my job. I'm a coach. Because to me, a coach is not better. They're a friend. They're an equal. They're there for you. They're somebody who cares deeply about your well-being, but they're also incredibly skilled to help guide you at the moment you really need it. And so I started promoting this idea of being a coach. And, you know, the sports metaphor helped some people, but the media didn't buy into it very much. But I was able to succeed finally, because I was able to keep measuring these results. I mean, I would go out and say, I'll come see me for one session, I'll handle this problem, or you pay me nothing. And you can check it out for 60 days. I still use that formula to this day, as many of you know, with my products and services. So what was really fascinating, though, was along the way, there's a point after years of calling myself a coach, and there was no coaching industry, nobody talking themselves as coaches. I remember at one point I hit a point where I was about to give it up. And Larry King even said to me on air one time, he said, what is this? You're a coach. What does that mean? And I was trying to explain peak performance coaching and strategy and so forth. And right about that time, suddenly coaching became the term of art, and everybody was a coach. Therapists started calling themselves coaches. Financial planners became coaches. It just became the term of art. So it's been a fascinating journey watching that word come in, because what I did is I helped build that term by making it based on real results. I remember turning 40, and I was really, really unhappy. I was like, Jesus, I've not done enough. I've not helped enough people. I helped tens of millions of people at that point already, done all over the earth in 100 plus countries at that point, but it was still kind of stuck in my head. So I would earn the love by over delivering, change somebody's life. Like, I don't get it because somebody says, oh, I love you, Tony. I mean, I appreciate that. Or, oh, you're the greatest. It's got to be my standard. My standard's higher than their standard for me, right? So when I get up and someone's going to kill themselves and they're suicidal and boom, turn around and they're no longer not going to kill themselves, but they're transformed, their life is there. That's when I go, okay, now we've hit the center of what I'm made for. Now, I deserve to feel this euphoric feeling within myself and appreciation. And even then, I still know it's God coming through me. I don't have the delusion it's just me. But I think sometime after 40, I finally saw the stupidity of it. I accumulated enough that I looked at life with fresh eyes. And I can say by the time I turned 60 a year ago, I noticed it was interesting because my birthday, I didn't have an ounce of it. I was just like, how could I at this stage of my life when I've had the privilege of serving so many humans in so many contexts, from turning around, guys going to kill themselves with PTSD to helping kids turn around to getting kids off cocaine or adults to, helping people build multi-billion-dollar businesses from nothing. And when I've lived this long, I can't go by without hearing half a dozen stories a day or dozen stories a day from people telling me how something I did changed their life. So it's not that I'm so smart now, it's just I've stacked it. By the way, though, stacking is the way you can do things. Most of us stack the negative. If you are really angry, it's not usually because of just the moment. It's that it happened again. It's like if you've ever lost it or overreacted to your kid or to a friend or a business or even within yourself, it's because it happened again. We hit this 1, 2, 3 mini point, and then our nervous system overreacts. But what I've learned is you can stack the good. But for example, if you go into a state of really strong anger for more than 5 minutes, your immune system is suppressed between an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's a physiological fact. But no one had done any study. I started stacking good. Like, okay, let me stack a dozen great memories, feel them, see them, experience them. And I felt this biochemical change that didn't just last a half hour, an hour, or 10 minutes. It went on for a day or two. And so I think I've learned to stack the good. So just having the experience is not enough. You got to stack the good to be able to appreciate it. But I think, just come back to the main point here from my perspective, which could be completely full, it's just my perspective. So I want to point that out. I think the more you find unconditional love for others, the easier it is to find in yourself. And I think the focus is serving and loving, and that's what will get you to the point where you start doing it. But if you want to speed it up, stack all the good you've done, you'll feel great about yourself. Fundamentally, the most basic thing you got to do, especially at a time like COVID, is you got to every day have a couple of simple practices. One of those is every day you got to feed your mind. And when I say feed your mind, I mean consciously seek out something that's going to give you new insight, new inspiration, new way of looking at things. Because otherwise, today, the news follows you, right? It's in your pocket. And the news people are good people, but they're doing their job. What's their job? Make as much profit as possible. How do you get the most profit? Get the most people to watch. How do you get the most people to watch? Fear. If it bleeds, it leads is the phrase they use in journalism, right? And we've seen so much fear built up now that most people have lost their faith. And you can't lose it, fortunately. It's just a muscle that needs to be regained. But you have to fill your mind. You have to pursue it. Great ideas are not going to interrupt you. They have to be pursued. And the good news is today, if you get away from just the traditional news, you can go to podcasts like Boss Babes. You can go to different locations. You can get another perspective, and you can feed your mind. But if you don't feed your mind, my original teacher was a guy named Jim Rohn. And he used to say, Tony, I got a question for you. He said, what if your worst enemy puts sugar in your coffee, what's going to happen to you when you drink that coffee? Is that you're going to have sweet coffee. He said, you know, what if your family member, your friend, your love, by accident drops 1 drop of strychnine? What's going to happen when you drink that coffee? He said, you're going to be dead. And he goes, that's right. Life is sugar and strychnine, so watch your coffee. Like every day, you got to stand guard at the door of your mind, especially at times like this when there's so much fear. So you feed your mind. No matter how long you live, no matter what changes in society, skill number 1, it's the ability to recognize patterns. You're really good at it. You do it in finance, you do it in business.
Thank you.
I'm not just blowing you with smoke. That's why you're successful. Because when you recognize patterns, it allows you to go to the second step, which is use them. If you recognize financial patterns, you can do great things. You recognize patterns in business, you can turn around any business. You know, that's what I've been doing. I have 105 companies now. We do $7 billion in business. And I have no business background. But I recognized the patterns and I studied the billionaires that started with nothing and said, what did they do? How did they do it? How did they turn it around? So if you can recognize patterns and if you can use them, you got a great advantage. But then gradually over time, like, you know, if you go to play the piano, you usually play other people's music initially. And then there's a point where you come through. Now you start creating patterns. And when you start creating patterns, that's when you become a dominant force in business, in life, in the marketplace, and with your children or anywhere else. Momentum is everything, right? The hardest part in life is creating momentum. So when that all happened, you know, I had built something of momentum over, you know, 40 years, literally at that point. Around the world. And, you know, what do you do all of a sudden when, you know, suddenly they say you can't do an event with more than 10 people and you've got 15,000 people scheduled to take over the stadium. And you know what I did? I went, we're going to Vegas. They're never going to shut down Vegas, right? But then they shut down Vegas. I was like, I know I'm going to rent a church, a mega church from a buddy of mine in Houston, 15,000 people. They're not going to keep Costco open and shut down the church. They kept Costco open and shut down the church. So I got to the point where it's like, what do you do? And when you think there's nothing you can do, that's when you can do something. When you think I don't know what to do, that's when you know what to do if you just push yourself. And so I was like, I pulled my team together. I saw a guy do like a webinar with 252-inch screens. And I said, I'll kill myself first. I said, I got to create an experience for people. They need it desperately, wherever they are in the world. So literally I pulled out a tape recorder. It's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 20-foot high LED screens, 50 feet wide, highest resolution in the world, 0.67, 50 degrees, 180 degrees around me, around the back. I'm going to call my buddy Eric Yon, and I'm going to see if Zoom, we can expand him from the little 1,000 to 20,000 or 30,000. I'm going to hire a firm to create an app so they can shake it so it sends a signal and you can hear reality of people clapping because the more you shake it, the louder it gets. And I just started creating the whole thing in an hour there. So when I was done, my CFO says, Tony, you know, after he saw all the numbers, it was over $20 million by the time we're done. He's like, Tony, should we rent some of this first? And I said to him, I said, listen, first of all, you can't. I said, go do your best. Not what I'm looking for. I said, second of all, this is going to be this way for a while. And we're going to use this to help more people. And that, you know, when things go back to normal, we get to go do that too. And I just did a Date with Destiny where I had, you know, 10,000 people from 97 countries. And then I had 500 people in front of me because I built the studio so that there's 40-foot high ceilings. So I could literally lift the 20-foot screen. And so now I have a hybrid event. People that want to come personally, I'm there. People that want to be in the middle of the night in some other country are able to participate. But all that comes from just taking action and momentum. If you build momentum, you can accomplish anything. You've seen it in sports. You see a team that's dominating and then somebody steals the ball and the momentum changes. Your job right now is to create momentum. And that's why I'm building this challenge, is basically to say to you, let's do a breakthrough for you right now so you know it's real. Let's get you to get a real result. Let's get you to shift yourself physically and mentally and emotionally so you can build that momentum, because it takes so much energy to rocket out of the atmosphere. It takes very little to take it out of the solar system. So that momentum, I think, is critical.
Just to entrepreneurs in general, and you're an entrepreneur, wildly successful entrepreneur, and you work with and are friends with many, many of the top entrepreneurs in the world. What are a few of the common attributes of the super successful entrepreneurs that you've seen? That might not be the obvious ones that you know come to mind.
Well, gosh, you know, I'll give you one example because I was just talking to him yesterday. Mark Benioff's a dear friend of mine, and he runs a company called Salesforce.com. He founded it. Mark went to my Unleash the Power Within event about 15 years ago. He went to it 3 times. It's repetition's the mother skill. He immersed himself in it. Again, a pro, not going to do something average. Comes up to me and introduces himself and says, Tony, he said, you've changed my life. I'm working for Oracle. I'm leaving. I'm starting this company, Salesforce.com. We're going to change the business world. I'll never forget. So we're going to do $100 million in business. I was teasing the other night. He's going to do $7 billion this year, right? And I've been on that 15-year journey with him. what do they have in common? They have a sense of something they want to serve greater than themselves. The only challenge sometimes in network marketing, and I think what gives it a bad reputation for some people, is you get people in there that really act like they're doing it for something larger than themselves, but it really is only them. Now, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to profit and be successful, but motive does matter. And the most successful entrepreneurs have a motive that includes themselves, but they want to do something that's going to change the world, make the world different. It's like, when you're trying to meet your own needs, you get a certain level of insight. If you're trying to meet the needs of your family, you get a different level of insight because life supports whatever supports more of life, more people. If you're trying to support your community, different insight. If you're trying to have an impact on the world, it's even larger. And I found in network marketing, you find a few missionaries that are like those other entrepreneurs that it really is their mission. They'd honestly do it for free. And they want to make money and they do make money. But if you're only doing it for the money, the unfortunate part is people sense that, and then they feel like it's just a transaction as opposed to an experience of added value. There's only one way on earth to really become wealthy, and that is do more for others than anybody else is doing.
You mentioned you reach out to someone, you'll text someone, you'll send a voice note or a video message, or maybe you're calling them or just saying hi to them and telling them you're acknowledging something that they're doing well that you appreciate. I don't think that many people do this. Why is this so important for you personally? And why do you think this would help so many people get out of themselves and overcome anxiety and stress if they did this even a couple of times a week? I know you do this every day, but just a couple texts a week. Why was this so valuable for people?
Well, number one, I love people, so I love to sincerely. If you just call someone to make a compliment and it's not sincere, anybody can feel that. I don't do that shit, It's like I pride myself in finding the goodness in people or the skill sets in people. And I also know that what is acknowledged tends to grow. So from standpoint of that, I want them to feel that feeling of being appreciated. I want them to know I see what's happening behind the camera, so to speak. It's like, that's what matters. It's not how everybody else sees you, it's how you really are. And then it also deepens every relationship you have when you sincerely acknowledge somebody and you notice something other people don't notice. And so it deepens the connection. And to me, quality of life is the quality of two things, your emotions and your relationships. And if my emotions are terrible, my relationships are going to be terrible. Right. But if I have great emotions and I can extend that out to help other people, then it just makes me feel more alive. So I do it for me and them. It's a virtuous cycle. Where focus goes, energy flows. Well, most people are focused on what they're afraid of, and so more fear comes their way. And it's easy because we all have a 2 million-year-old brain that's designed to look for what's wrong, to protect, so we protect ourselves, to fight it, or to run for it, or to freeze, right? That's the way our old brain is wired. It's a 2 million-year-old brain. But that brain's never going to make you happy. You have to learn to take control of your focus. And if you focus on, oh my God, it's never going to work, or you listen to somebody who tells you, COVID's going to be here forever, and we're never going to have any freedom again, and you focus on that, you can get really depressed, as most people have. We've had 100,000 people overdose on drugs. We have more depression and more people in a suicidal mode than we've ever seen in the last 2 years because people need a compelling future. You can deal with a tough today if you got a compelling tomorrow. And so what I help people do is design that. But once you change your focus, you'll change how you feel. Focus and feeling go together.
For another amazing Tony Robbins clip, check it out right there next to us. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe. We'll see you there.
I believe in energy. I believe in inspiration because inspired, in spirit, the opposite of that is kind of dead, right? So I believe in being inspired.